Talk to Malik Jones on issues that matter every Saturday on Star TV. Talk to Malik Jones, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. 1 hour of tough talk only on this medium.
Hello once again, I am Malik Jones and welcome to the program that bears my name, Talk to Malik Jones. And guess who I have in the program today? The EU Ambassador to the Gambia, His Excellency, Honorable Attila Lajos. Ambassador, welcome to Talk to Malik Jones.
Thank you very much. It's a real honor for me to talk to Malik Jones.
We have met on several occasions. We have never sat side by side over the microphone or in front of the cameras, but I am delighted to really have you, Ambassador, on this program. And we will be looking at some issues. For example, the security sector reform. We'll also be looking at EU-Gambia relations, as well as your advice to the Gambia in our democratic process. But we will begin with the most crucial and most important topic in this program, and that is the demise of the draft bill that would have brought forward the Gambia's third constitution. Before members of the National Assembly went to chambers, the international community was urging members of that august body to vote the bill and bring in the new constitution of the Gambia. Why did the international community make that plea?
Thank you very much for this very difficult question. We've been monitoring the maturing of the Gambian democracy and uploaded all the achievements the Gambia has made so far. When it comes to constitutional reform, this is probably one of the most difficult challenge in any country in the world. When realizing how the process went, we also realized that the draft bill reached a very critical stage. And that was the stage at the second reading, where 3/4 of the votes were necessary. Based on the indications we received from our partners, and also the many reach out to us by civil society actors expressing their worries about the vote itself, we felt necessary to reassure the maturing of the Gambian democratic process without interfering with domestic affairs. If one reads the statement, could clearly see what we were lobbying for was a matured discussion, a matured scrutiny process to be completed in the National Assembly to reach the most important stage of the bill, if I can say so, and that is the third stage, the third reading, where committee level discussions would have taken place, including, of course, making proposals for amendments, changes, to have a dialogue about reaching a compromise. We also believe, given the scope of and the importance of the document, the main law of the land, we also lobbied for giving it to the people to decide whether they want to have a new constitution like this or not. That's why we issued this statement, and we received many appreciation from among the populace in general for the firm stand the international community was taking in this democratization process in the Gambia.
Were you surprised that it failed?
Well, I think being an international actor, we can't afford the luxury of being surprised. That's rather emotional. It's not our role. So it's not about being surprised. I think the most important thing now is to look forward. Happened what happened, everybody has to accept that. This is the role, this is the game of democracy, this is democracy in practice, decisions were made, that's it. The question is not that. Of course, I would leave the questions of why and how and la 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 for all the political actors in the country. For me, for international community, the question is now, looking forward, what's next? So we expect the Gambia, state and non-state actors alike, to let us know what is the next, what is the plan B, how would the constitutional reform process or the legal reform process continue in the country in the upcoming period till the next election and afterwards. I mean, after all, the presidential election in 2016 was a clear expression of choice by the people that they wanted to have change. The current government made it very clear that they are embarking on very ambitious changes in all sectors of life, including, of course, the legal framework, which is quite obvious. I mean, Gambia is coming out of a dictatorship. I mean, in any country where the rule of law is a main value, changing and modifying, democratizing the different legal instruments in the set of laws of the country is a requirement. So for us now, the question after this wake-up call, what is the Gambia going to do in terms of pursuing the legal reforms further? It is entirely up to the Gambia to decide what way they're going to do that. From an international perspective, we don't have preference whether they should go for the new constitution or they should modify the 97 constitution. It's a Gambian choice. For us, the important thing is that the reform process will not stagnate. And indeed, for this to change any constitution anywhere in the world, you need a sort of national consensus compromise. Without that, a technical voting, like what happened with this premature decision, the technical voting can always go wrong. I believe it's a reflection that there is no national compromise in this regard, and that's what we are looking forward to hearing from our Gambian partners, how they wish to achieve that in the time to come.
You mentioned in very earlier on that the procedure stopped at the second reading, and they should have allowed it to go to a third reading and then consequently to the committee. Do you think there was a flaw in the proceedings?
Well, I think the proceeding was as per the book, as per the standing orders in the National Assembly. So I don't think there was any procedural problem in that sense. At least this is my take about what I heard via the different media reportings. There was a procedure. There were at different stages, there were different opportunities to make a vote, and in fact the draft bill failed the vote at the second reading.
They say, put your mouth where your money is. Did the EU put in money part of the $116 million that some people think has just gone down the drain?
I see two angles of this question, and I will come to both. I do not think that this is now money just going down the drain. I do not consider it like that.
Very well.
There is a lot to benefit from what has been so far achieved, in other words, what has been invested in terms of financial investment. So I do believe that's the challenge now, how to save the most of it. Going back to the issue of EU support, technically speaking, there was no EU money directly in that $160 million you mentioned. On the other hand, it's true, and it's no secret, that the European Union has been delivering budgetary support to the Gambia ever since 2017. Budgetary support is a new instrument, have never been applied in the Gambia, in the EU-Gambia partnership before that. This is a degree of trust the European Union had vis-à-vis the country benefiting from the budgetary support. The idea behind the budgetary support is that we sign a contract. In the contract, we jointly establish achievable benchmarks. And then the benefiting partner goes ahead and achieve those benchmarks, because these are their political objectives. And once those benchmarks are achieved, then the budgetary support can be released. In other words, we are not giving money for any government to do something. That's not the idea. The government achieve its goals, and if those benchmarks are achieved, we agreed on in the contract, then the budgetary support disbursement can take place. Yes, I have to, I mean, again, this is no secret. In one of the so-called state resilience building contract we signed with the government, there were components in the so-called variable tranche where benchmarks were related to the constitutional reform process. And like the disbursements which were foreseen for this year and budgetary disbursement foreseen for 2021, there were components where a certain amount was foreseen for supporting the constitutional review and reform process as a whole. This is not only the drafting, this is not only the voting, this is not everything including the electoral law, referendum, updating the registry of voters and all the technical details. And in that sense, yes, there is an indirect European financial support made available to the Gambian government via the budgetary disbursement.
The Gambia is still in a transition. That is my feeling, because we have a government that is a coalition-led government, and we are about to see a series of elections. We have 2 by-elections coming up. We were supposed to have a referendum based on the outcome of the draft bill on the constitution. Had it passed, it hasn't though. But then we have a presidential elections coming up in December. Following that, we have the National Assembly elections and of course the local government elections. Looking at the landscape, what do you think the Gambia should be doing now in order to be more pro-democracy?
Well, I think, first of all, I'm not here to advise the Gambia. The Gambia is a sovereign state. The Gambia has got an ambitious agenda as to how to reform the country. I mean, this is the platform on which this government was voted in. In that agenda, there are ambitious goals which are still achievable. So my humble advice is to carry on with the reform processes the country has started. Since you mentioned all these fancy occasions like election, presidential election, National Assembly election, let me also emphasize here how important it is to prepare the basis for those elections. Just yesterday, was it yesterday? No, sorry, the day before, there was a validation workshop, 2-day validation workshop on the new electoral law of the country. So for me, from an international perspective, the presidential election date, whatever in December 2021 or National Assembly election, is still far away, but there is a lot which can be and should be done before that, including those reforming of those essential laws, electoral laws, media law, the law on public order, for example. I mean, these are legal instruments which directly contribute to how democratically the next election cycle could take place, including, of course, the campaign period, including how people could demonstrate, including many important fundamental rights related issues. And I think that's what the Gambia got to maximize in the upcoming period, to make sure that at the next election in 2021, we can really talk about level playing field for all the actors, and we can really talk about free and fair election. That's what our expectations are, and that's where we are interested in continuing supporting the Gambia in this transition.
Talking about free and fair and maintaining public order, that brings me to a very contentious issue that you have always advocated, security sector reform, which you think, which I heard you, not a marathon, you think, I heard you many times say that we are still behind what is expected.
it doesn't really
Do
matter.
you hold on that still?
It doesn't really matter what I think about it. What really matters is what the Gambian people think about it. We had a few support, project intervention, technical assistance in the SSR process in the past 3 years, including the involvement of the Geneva Center for the Democratic Control of Armed Forces, DCAF. Now it's actually Geneva Center for Security Sector Reform. It's a world acknowledged institution. And they also delivered support to this SSR. And a part of that last year was also making surveys inside the security sector institutions. They actually did an audit of all the security sector institutions, as well as they did a survey among the populace as to how the average people, average Gambian, sees the SSR. Lessons learned from that is that the population believes that there are not enough tangible results and there are no really tangible changes in the reform process. While saying that, I'm also truly acknowledging a lot of change which took place. Security sector reform policy, strategy, national security policy, strategy, these are all important instruments, but obviously these are not the type of changes which the average Gambian would really feel and see as a reforming of the forces. So in that sense, the SSR is probably the least advanced reform process started in the Gambia, especially in comparison to Truth and Reconciliation process, or even the constitutional review process.
You have supported, or the EU has supported ECOMIG in the Gambia up to a certain time when your support was not direct. Now you're supporting ECOMIG through the ECOWAS Commission in Abuja. Why did you stop direct funding?
Let me take this opportunity for a slight correction.
Very well, I'll appreciate that.
My feet is already shrinking because who am I to correct a veteran journalist?
No, you're
but
the right.
To be very factual, we never directly supported ECOMIG per se. From the beginning, 2017 we are talking about, from the beginning, the funding of the ECOMIG troops mandate has always been done under the so-called African Peace Facility, which is a financial support to ECOWAS headquarters via which the mandate of the ECOMIG troops were effectively funded. And this was the mechanism since the beginning. And indeed, we did funded several mandates of ECOMIG, speaking accurately, up until including 31st of March this year, the entire funding of ECOMIG was provided by the European Union. Since then, since 1st April, we have not contributed to the funding of the troops for the simple reason that there was no such request received from ECOWAS headquarters. We acknowledge the recent renewal of the mandate of the ECOMIG troops, but as we speak at this moment, the European Union in Brussels has not received any funding request from from ECOWAS headquarters as yet. This is the factual situation. This is nothing else but the end of a contract and the lack of request for the continuation of funding.
And that request comes from ECOWAS and not from the Gambia government?
No, it came from ECOWAS headquarters, and it has to come from ECOWAS headquarters, but it hasn't arrived yet.
Thank you, Ambassador, for that clarification, which I think is very apt at this moment, because a lot of people thought that the European Union was directly funding ECOMIG's operations here in the Gambia. You're listening, or you're watching, by the way, to Talk to Malik Jones. My guest is the EU Ambassador to the Gambia, Honorable Attila Lajos. Ambassador, I'll take you back to the demise, the predicament that the draft bill for the third constitution found itself. Do you think that members of the National Assembly had enough time to actually look at the Constitution per se and make up their minds?
Well, very frankly speaking, there's a clear framework, a protocol, how a draft constitution should be processed. If I recall, the government gazetting the draft twice. If I look at this process, this was done as per the national laws. So this is the time the Gambian current legal framework attaches to processing the draft. I think the question whether National Assembly members entirely comprehended the heavy text, the legal text of the draft constitution is probably a question the electorates should ask their representatives. From an international perspective, I do believe the procedure was respected. I do believe it provided ample time for basically anybody to read the constitution. On the other hand, I'm not blind and neither deaf. I was watching the media broadcasting about the discussion,
yes.
the procedures in the second reading, and when I heard some of the questions from statements from National Assembly members, I understood that some of them might not have been entirely comprehending how the procedure is going on, what is happening at each and every stage, or what was supposed to happen at the different stages of the first, second, and third reading. So perhaps in that sense, a higher degree of awareness raising and capacity building should be necessary for the next occasion when a draft constitution would be tabled to the August Assembly. In that sense, I believe it's extremely important to make it as participatory, as transparent as possible, which was the case during the CRC process. Because the Constitution, being the most important law of the country, requires that. And without that, I believe a national consensus compromise cannot be achieved. And obviously, we learned from the voting, this national compromise still needs to be built up. So I just humbly call on all political actors to do their best to build up this national compromise and consensus in order for the Gambia to enter into a new constitution at some stage in the future.
You have spent some years, some very good years in the Gambia.
Fantastic years.
Around 6-7 years now.
To be exact, I landed at the end of January 2016. So I have been here for about 4.5 years now.
You have read, during your time, I'm sure, as an ambassador, you must enjoy, you must be well read. I'm sure you looked into the 1997 Constitution, which I'm afraid wasn't a very bad constitution. Now that nothing is available except the 1997 Constitution, if there was going to make any, if Gambians were going to make any amendments, where would you pinpoint? An outsider looking in. An outsider looking in. Let me qualify that. You're not a Gambian. You would tell me I should throw that to the Gambians. I know where we're coming from.
Indeed.
But like an outsider looking in, if you were a Gambian, where do you think we need to adjust?
Mr. Jones, you are really putting me into trouble. For two reasons. Yes, probably my bigger half is already a Gambian. And I certainly feel tempted to participate as a half citizen, let's say that, in this process. But on the other hand, from an international perspective and from the point of view of the European Union, the importance is that there is a political will and a political compromise, consensus, how to go about this situation now. If this political roundtable, let's put it that way, will decide that they would prefer not having a new constitution but modifying the current constitution of 1997, then that will be the case. From an international perspective, it doesn't really matter, with all due respect, because what matters is that the country decides. And in that sense, what we were told so far was the fact that the country decided to have a new constitution. That's why we lobbied for the promotion of the draft, which eventually failed. Now, under these circumstances, this is a call, a wake-up call, if you wish, for the Gambian political elite to sit together and achieve this compromise for the benefit of the country. So put national interest first before political party or individual interest, and make this decision. Rest assured, if there is a political dialogue which will produce a political objective shared by all, the international partners will be more than happy to support and facilitate and help the Gambia to achieve that objective.
In other words, you are alluding to the fact that we need to have a multi-party roundtable where we can come together
again
and put Gambia first.
I think the beauty and the difficulty at the same time of any transition is that the country in transition has to make up its mind and decide which way they go. You can look at a lot of examples of regime changes around the world, democratization processes. Each and every process is different because the very country in it is different. So Gambia has to find the Gambian way. Having said that, it is also a kind of international lesson learned that only those countries could really succeed in this transitional difficulties, those who had a kind of national roundtable. And it doesn't matter how you call it. You can call it whatever name. The point is that you have the decisive political party leaders, civil society, influential figures, really the so-called leadership of the country, including those in government as well as in opposition, regardless which opposition. So this national roundtable dialogue got to be very comprehensive. In other words, not only government should be there or political party leaders, but every one of them, those who are registered. Now, whether this dialogue is a brand new instrument, or whether you wish to use some of the already existing instruments, if I may remind the dear viewers, there is a inter-party committee as a platform established, which played an important role before the 2016 election. But again, this is a Gambian choice. Whichever that is, could very well serve as a forum, as a place, a venue for the dialogue, for the necessary dialogue, to agree on a minimum, as a consensus or compromise, national compromise, in order for the Gambia to be able to ever achieve a modification of a constitution or a new constitution, for that matter.
Ambassador, let me take you now to EU-Gambia relationship. How is it now? What is on the table as we speak? How is the relationship like?
Well, one of the reasons I feel extremely fortunate is because I have been posted to this job probably at the right time. Starting with a stagnating partnership under the former regime, where most of the projects, most of the interventions were withheld because of human rights concerns, and then witnessing and a little bit steering the changes as far as the EU-Gambia partnership is concerned. Just to give you a comparison, back in 2016, the preliminarily earmarked amount of EU support for the Gambia was in the range of 30+ million euro, mainly via non-state actors and via project assistance. And now we are talking about 365 million plus, which have been the amount of EU support to the Gambia in this transition process between 2017 and 2021. I mean, this is a multiplication of, what, 12 or more. And I think this shows how significantly the partnership really improved and moved. It doesn't mean that there is no room for improvement. It doesn't mean that in the new financial cycle we shouldn't do more about the achievements of the partnership. I think the big question now if I look at the calendar, is the occasion when we, European Union and member states representatives, we can sit down with the government in the format of the so-called Article 8 political dialogue meeting to take stock and also to identify what comes important in this partnership in the future. And this is very timely because, as you know, the European Union will have a new budget by the end of this year. So the development assistance budget, which is going to be offered to African, Caribbean and Pacific countries, including the Gambia, of course, will be available from next year, and we will have to do an indicative program for the period 2021 and 2027. The EU works in 7-year budgetary cycle. Now, in order to prepare for this, it will be very important to have a strategic dialogue with the government, and I got assurances from the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs that they will come up with date proposals so we can sit down and discuss the strategic issues in this partnership.
What is your assessment of where EU money's gone to the Gambia? What have you seen? Has the money been utilized to your expectations?
Again, my personal expectations are not important. What is important is to see how the two sides feel about what has happened in the past 4 years. How the Gambia, not only the government, but the Gambia, whoever was receiving EU support, how do they feel about this, and how do we, EU and member states, feel about the same? We had a process, a series of discussions in spring, which was somewhat delayed because of the COVID, but we still continued and concluded these discussions with various partners, state and non-state actors, civil society, international partners, the whole 9 yards, whereby we try to make an assessment, also looking at EU's interest in the future, and establishing the main areas where we should offer assistance. Important to underline that in this partnership you have two equal partners. We are offering assistance, and it's up to the Gambia to decide to take it or not. We already foresee that for the future we will have two main initiatives. Initiative means a complexity of programs where the projects are not yet identified at this stage. And the two initiatives are the Green Gambia, supporting reforming in the way Gambia continues existing, in terms of energy production, in terms of way of life, to have Green Gambia, to preserve the beauty and the natural resources of the Green Gambia, to have sustainable way of energy production, others, solar, etc. So this is the Green Gambia component. And of course the other one is the so-called Good Gambia component, which means the Gambia, the governance in the Gambia eventually becomes an example of good governance for the rest of the world. And this component includes, of course, the support for the democratic changes, the transformation, all the different processes going on, because it's important to make sure that this democratic transition continues in a peaceful manner, as it was the case so far, and also with efficiency and tangible changes for the benefit of the population. These are the two main angles of engagement for the future we are offering to the Gambia. And I think these are the questions which are not yet decided, in the sense that we will still have to discuss it with the government as to what they really want, civil society, the whole palette, and to make sure that we invest, because this is our obligation vis-à-vis the EU taxpayers. We have to make sure that where we invest, we offer assistance, we do it in a sector, in an area where there is a chance for a breakthrough with the tailor-made EU assistance, so we achieve something tangible for the benefit of the population. And this is going to be increasingly important for the EU as well. So I think this is now at a stage where we look at the mirror, what has happened, what has been delivered, what has been done, what has been the results achieved, and what could we do better in the future. There is no such thing like perfect implementation of development cooperation. There is always room for improvement, and we are very eager to identify those areas and go for it.
Direct impact on the lives of the people of the Gambia means working with local government. How has EU cooperation been like with local government?
Thank you very much for asking this extremely important question. If you look at the whole issue of development cooperation between EU and partner countries, it is also going through a change. There used to be things done in the past which are no longer done. And in that sense, it is also an important aspect in the Gambia that traditionally in the Gambia the EU used to be supporting the state, but mainly the central government, and of course civil society, media, etc., etc. And this is only recently that we have, if you wish, a pilot case. The EU support for Banjul City Council, this twinning project between Banjul and Ostend, is the first of its kind. And without preempting the eventual auditing of the project, which comes in every project, without preempting those findings, but as it stands now, we see very positive outcomes so far and results. And this is a clear indication for us that the European Union should do more in the future directly with local governments, directly with regions within the country, and not only concentrating on the central government. But it's a difficult balance. I mean, the needs, the demands are much more than what's available. So, metaphorically speaking, I always have a problem asking myself which finger to bite, because we may not have as much in the future as we had the past time. And this is because for the political changes to take place and for the new democracy to survive, the European Union allocated disproportionately high amount of support to the Gambia in the past 4 years in comparison with any other country if you take into consideration the size of the country and the number of the population. And this is because of the democratic changes started in 2016. This is because of the Gambia decided. This window of opportunity may not be sustainable. I don't know yet what would be the amount and size of the EU total support in the future. It is not yet decided. But I expect challenges to come any close to the current one in the future.
Where do I stand? And when I say I, I'm talking about...
I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about. How is your cooperation with us?
Well, I do believe also in general, but specifically the past 4 years also showed how important role the media plays in any country, but especially in a country going through such dramatic fundamental changes. And I have no doubt that the EU will have to step up its support to the media in the country as a whole. I am not making easy promises, don't get me wrong. This is my intention, this is going to be my proposal. Of course, it's always a team decision, including member states, Team Europe initiatives. But I do believe it will be in the benefit of this democratization process if we could support civil society, including media, of course, with more efficient, in a more efficient way than in the past. I have to admit, in the past 4 years, the support was very skinny. Very skinny because at the beginning of the changes, we had to revise what we can do. And frankly, the most important thing was to make sure that the country will keep standing and will keep walking. You may recall in 2017, the country was close to collapsing, financially speaking. So indeed, one of the deficit, if you wish, in the past 4 years was indeed the less massive support for the media from the European Union, which I hope will change in the future.
Ambassador, we're running out of time. The United Nations is celebrating 75 years.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to them, of course. And that brings me to the theme that is currently in the Gambia, being propagated by the United Nations Development Program. And I would like to ask you this question, like I have asked many Gambians. What kind of Gambia would you want to see in 2045?
2045. So it's 5 years' time, right?
No, 20 years time. We're in 2020.
And you said
In
2025.
2045.
Oh, 45. Sorry. Math wasn't my strong point.
Neither was
What
I.
Gambia I would like to see,
In
obviously,
2045.
obviously a happy Gambia where people are happy, where the youth will find its way. Of course, peaceful, of course, welcoming, so a Tubab like me can return and pay a visit. I certainly learned a lot from the Gambia. No secret, I'm approaching the end of my posting as we speak, and sometimes I already started taking stock, and I feel that when leaving the Gambia, I think I will leave as a better man than when I was coming here, when I arrived here, and that is because of the Gambia helping me change for better. Now, if I look at what is that potential in the Gambia, in the soul of the Gambia, in the Gambian people, that makes me rather positive when it comes to the future of the Gambia. Because when you have a concentration of so many good souls, it's just unimaginable that it will not work out. So in 25 years, I'm sure the democratic gains will have been already massively stabilized, and there will be a very vivid, colorful democracy working, and I think the Gambia will probably enter the stage of the international community of nations where he can proudly show the rest of the world what he has achieved.
Ambassador, thank you very much for granting us this interview. We
Thank you
look
for
forward to
inviting me.
all the sessions with you. This time we do not shake hands, but we will shake our face. That was the Honorable Attila Lajos, the EU ambassador to the Gambia. He was talking to me, Malik Jones. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Hello, and once again, welcome to the program Talk to Malik Jones on Star TV.
Talk to Malik Jones on issues that matter every Saturday on Star TV. Talk to Malik Jones, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. 1 hour of tough talk only on this medium.
Hello, and once again, welcome to the program Talk to Malik